Hey guys, it's time for The Flash, Season 4, Episode 11, The Elongated Night Rises, and I really did not know how to feel about this episode, especially the way the last one ended. I just really was not looking forward to seeing Barry in jail, and it just really seemed like they were stretching out the plots, and I will say this episode was definitely better, if only because it didn't focus on that plotline. Sure, that plotline was around, but most of this episode focused on Ralph and him taking Barry's place, and I've said before, Ralph is a very entertaining character. We got a lot of fun stuff within this episode, and I did overall enjoy this one, but let's just get into this episode. We start right off the bat. Barry sitting in his cell is outside the prisoner riot. The guards toss in smoke grenades and drive the prisoners back. Barry finally super speeds through. He locks the prisoners up. He then looks at his graffiti on the wall that he added to Henry's, and we see in downtown Central City, Joe's talking to a man who threatens to blow himself and his hostages up. The man says he'll trigger his bomb if he sees Flash. Then he starts making demands, and while Joe negotiates with the man, a masked Ralph removes the hostages. When the man turns back, he discovers his hostages are all gone, and Ralph then steps in, tells him he's going to jail, but then radios Team Flash to ask what his superhero name is, and when the man threatens to blow the city block, Ralph points out he'll blow himself up as well. Ralph then grabs the bomb off the man, absorbs the detonation with his body, and at Star Labs see Ralph and the others watch a newscast with Ralph, and the media have named him Stretchy Man, and obviously he really does not like this name at all. Iris and Keyinan point out that he put people at risk, and Ralph insists that he's indestructible. Keyinan says he's been too preoccupied with Barry in prison to come up with a superhero name for Ralph. So Iris says that they've been going over Barry's appeal, but still haven't found anything to clear his name. So at Iron Heights, we see Barry walks through the yard. He watches the clock. Another prisoner named Axel Walker introduces himself. Barry points out that Axel and his father kidnapped Henry once, and Barry insists that he didn't kill anyone. So Axel points out another prisoner, Big Sir, says that he is really innocent. He then suggests that he and Barry be murder buds, and Barry isn't interested, walks off. A prisoner then trips him. The prison gang leader complains that Barry got mud on his shoes. He starts to attack Barry, but Wolf comes out, tells him to stay clean in prison. Wolf tells him that his 130 is waiting for him, and I just really don't care about these prison scenes, to be honest with you. They're just kind of boring. We see Barry, he goes to where Iris is waiting. He claims it's not as bad as he thought. Iris says they'll get Barry out of prison. She warns that Ralph is cocky and can't believe that this is their new normal. Barry assures her that she'll find something. They put their hands against their side of the glass before Iris goes, and that night, a guard then takes Axel to the infirmary when he complains that he's sick. A nurse tells the guard that the regular nurse is out sick, then injects the guard with a sedative, and Axel realizes the woman is actually his mother, and she says that it's time to go. I did like the way these two plot lines actually did correlate. I did think that was kind of cool the way this was done, but the next day, Joe comes to the prison. Wolf tells him that the nurse Lindsay Feinhardt's back history was clean, and Joe sees Barry working as a janitor, asks Wolf how Barry is doing. Wolf says that Barry is a model inmate and goes to get the file. So Joe talks to Barry, explains that Axel escaped. Barry asks to help with it and asks if Cisco has any luck bypassing the security cameras, and Joe tells him to focus on being in prison. And I was really happy Joe said that. I was really not looking forward to seeing another very unrealistic scene of Barry getting out of prison and being the Flash. I was not looking forward to seeing that, but basically, Joe tells him to focus on being in prison just as Wolf comes back and shows Joe a photo of Lindsay. The detective then takes the photo back to Star Labs, tells the nurse is Zoe Clark, James Jesse's partner in crime. She inherited a toy empire that closed 20 years ago, and Zoe and James launched a series of terrorist attacks. Zoe disappeared after James was arrested, and 9 months later she gave birth to Axel. So if you guys can't tell, this is in fact Trickster's son, and it was cool to see Trickster's son here. I would have loved to see, James Jesse. It's been a while since we've seen his character, and Mark Hamill is just so great there. But it was cool to see Axel, and Ralph then goes to check his contacts, takes Keyinan along with him to pay for the drinks. And we then see an abandoned toy factory. Zoe warns Axel the police are looking for him. He figures that they're going to see James, and Zoe says he broke out a year ago and didn't come looking for Axel. She tells Axel that James is a deadbeat, and Axel tells his mother not to talk about James like that. So Zoe explains that she was the one taking care of Axel while James terrorized the city. She doesn't want James back and never want Axel to end up like James. So Axel says he needs to get his father's attention, sees the newscast of Ralph. Zoe tells Axel not to go, but he then walks out. So Barry's exercising when the gang surrounds him. One of them pulls a shiv, but Big Sir attacks them, knocks them out. The leader warns that it isn't over and leaves, and Barry then thanks Big Sir, and Big Sir walks off without a word. So Cisco's checking the perimeter when Trickster hijacks the TV broadcast. He takes out a bouncy ball. Cisco traces the transmission. Trickster tosses the ball underneath the cabin and explodes. He then tells the authorities to bring him Stretchy Man, and Ralph is eager to go and figures that he can handle it. He asks Cisco to breach him there, and Trickster's then blowing up cars left and right when Ralph arrives. The villain then tosses Ralph an exploding ball. Ralph absorbs the explosion in his hand. Trickster then throws a shuriken at him, and Ralph absorbs that as well. He then uses acid that burns Ralph's skin. Vibe then breaches in, knocks Trickster away, then takes Ralph back to Star Labs. So we see Caitlin is tending to Ralph's injuries, and he actually did get pretty badly beaten up, and Cisco points out the acid would have melted anyone else. They think that he'll heal eventually, but again, they're not 100% sure. And Ralph is shocked to learn that he's not completely indestructible. And I actually like this. I like that Ralph isn't invincible here. You know, yes, he's a superhero, but he's not perfect. You know, he definitely does have those weaknesses within him, and Iris says that they should track Trickster down. So at Iron Heights, Barry asks a guard to check if Iris is there because she's running late. He ignores her. Barry goes over to Big Sir, asks why he helped him. Big Sir says that Henry helped him, and then walks off. So Zoe's mixing more acid. Axel comes back, says that James will see that he failed. He says that Axel can be even better than him, and admits she didn't take her meds, and Axel asks her to kill with him. Zoe agrees. She then shows him her new costume based on the one from when she was pranked to James's Trickster. And at Star Labs, Harry admits that they can't find Trickster because he's a normal human, and Trickster goes on the air with a TV show. He introduces Prank. She brings out their first contestant, 2 hostages, shows off a chair underneath an acid shower. Prank then tested on a Bebo doll, which I did like the way that Bebo actually connected to this. Again, it reminds us that all these shows are in fact connected except for Black Lightning. Turning into a pile of mush, Cisco then triangulates their signal while Prank says they need Stretchy Man to come in 1 hour or the hostages drive. And after Cisco identifies where they are, Joe says he'll make a police perimeter. Harry's working on a solvent for the acid, and Cisco gives Ralph a new suit. Ralph tells him that he can't do it. Iris tells him a year ago she thought that she was going to die, and Ralph says that he's not that strong in the face of danger, and then walks out. And I did like this scene. I like that Iris was trying to, you know, give him this hope, and I really enjoyed that. But that night, Ralph then sneaks into Barry's cell, says that he's breaking him out, and Barry points out that there are cameras everywhere, and Ralph explains that Trickster and Prank are on the loose. Barry wonders why things are different, and Ralph says that Axel had an acid that can kill him, and he's simply not ready to die. So he admits he's not fearless like Barry. Barry says that he's not fearless either, which, I mean, we know that's true. There definitely is some weaknesses in Barry, and Barry tells Ralph he has to rise up above his fear. He assures Ralph that he believes he can do it, and Ralph needs to believe it too, and Ralph then sneaks out as his cell's open for a check. Iris then picks up a container on the roof of the factory. Harry says he'll neutralize it. They scare Kaylin into becoming Killer Frost and head for the factory, and Barry then approaches Big Sir, asks how Henry saved his life. Big Sir shows him a scar, explains that Henry found him and figured that his appendix had burst. Henry convinced Wolf to let him operate, and he saved Big Sir's life, and Big Sir figures that they're even, walks off, the gang subdues him. Again, I could honestly care less about the story. I get the connection with Henry and Barry, but again, I just don't really care. We know this isn't going to last forever, and I just don't, like I said, I just don't really care about the story right now. So Vibe and Frost then sneak in the factory. They rescue the hostages. Bebo dolls float down from the ceiling. Frost then freezes them solid. The hooded hostages are actually Trickster and Prank, we find out, and they snap power-dampening handcuffs on the 2 heroes. Iris warns Harry, and Ralph tells Iris that he'll handle it. She smiles and gives him his new costume, and Barry's walking down the hall. He hears the 3 gang members beating up on Big Sir, tells them to stop. The gang members draw shivs. When they attack Barry, he takes 2 of them out so fast that they can't see him. The leader warns that Barry won't get lucky twice. Barry then super speeds, disarms him, and punches him unconscious. Big Sir then thanks him for his help, and Harry then finds the acid on the floor. He analyzed it to make a solvent, and Trickster and Prank then go on the air, announce that they've captured both Vibe and Frost. The villains then spin air, Wheel of Misfortune. Ralph then bursts in. He tells them to let the heroes go, says that he was ready to throw in the towel until he visited a friend to remind him that real heroes rise above their fear. Trickster and Prank then applaud his speech. They squirt him with acid. Ralph then stretches back and then fires himself at Trickster. I will admit there was some cartoony stuff within this scene, but I thought it worked overall because Trickster and Prank, let's face it, they've been very cartoony since the beginning, and that was really no different here. They knock him out. She pulls the lever on the acid showers. Ralph then stretches over Vibe and Frost. The acid doesn't hurt him. Harry says that he'll go to the solvent just in time, and Ralph tells Prank not to run and unties his friends, and as the police take Trickster and Prank away, Prank promises they'll go on a crime spree again in 2 years. The press then interview Ralph, and he flirts with her. The reporter calls him Stretchy Man, but Ralph comes up with the name Elongated Man. The next day, Ralph and the others read about his new name, and everyone likes it except Ralph, and I did think it was pretty funny that even though Ralph basically coined the phrase, he was completely against the idea. Like, no, it's just too on the nose. It's not a real name. I just thought that was really clever, but Ralph asks Joe what he should do. Joe tells him to do whatever keeps the city safe, just like the rest of them. Big Sir then tells Barry that he'll keep looking out for him. Barry advises him to find a friend if he wants to survive. The other convict says that Harry will be proud of him and gives him his real name of Dave. Ireson arrives, meets with Barry. Barry says he just brought out what was inside of Ralph. Barry then chuckles, says that being in prison isn't so different from being free, and Iris points out they're not together. She can't touch him. Barry glances at the camera, then vibrates through the glass, dividing them so that they can touch hands. This scene was extremely cheesy. As much as I do like that they've given Iris more stuff to do this season, just scenes like this are just a level of just cringy levels of cheese, honestly. I really was not a fan of that at all, but at Jitters, Cisco and Ralph then get coffee. They argue about who will pay, and this ending I really did love. We see a woman pays for it, says she's paying forward. The woman talks about karma, and Cisco admires her shirt. Once she leaves, Cisco wonders why Ralph didn't pick her up. Ralph figures the girl is too smart for her, and as they leave, the woman writes symbols in her journal, the same ones that Barry wrote when he re-emerged from the Speed Force. Oh, I should also mention this is the same woman who was at Barry and Iris's faux wedding in the crossover, and that is the way this episode ends. So, like I said, a lot of stuff to really talk about with this episode. Right off the bat, I really do love this ending. I mean, we've known pretty much since the crossover that there was something up with this girl. She just seemed like she had this really familiar connection to Iris and Barry, and I'm just going to throw it out there. I do think all those theories about her being Barry and Iris's future daughter is very much true. I think that's exactly who this is. Now, how she's there, I don't really know. I don't know really what's going on here, but I'm interested in seeing really where this does go. I'm glad that the show didn't just drop this plot point, because these shows tend to do this a lot. They'll start something and then they don't really deliver on it, and I'm glad to see they are doing something with this. So I'm just honestly really curious to see where they do go with this out of everything. So I really do like that overall. I also really like that Ralph was pretty much front and center in this episode. I mean, sure, you did have Barry, but Ralph was the true star of this episode, and I thought it worked very well. Like I said, Hartley Sawyer is just a very charismatic actor. He's a lot of fun to watch, and I like that he has this hope in him. Like, he knows that he can, in fact, be a hero, and he's not completely indestructible, but he understands that, you know, Barry's not there. You know, he can't just get out of prison and save them. That's not how this works. Ralph has to do it on his own, and I did overall enjoy seeing that. I thought that was definitely a very well done storyline for him, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of Cisco and Ralph interact. I always have liked their interactions throughout the season, so I really did enjoy that. I will admit, I did not like this Trickster as much as Mark Hamill's Trickster, but that's just because Mark Hamill's just so perfection in this role, and he's got it down so well, and he takes it so seriously. Even though it's a silly role, he really does play it safe. You know, not play it safe, but he plays it straight for the most parts. You know, he really... And I will admit, I was not as huge as a fan of this iteration of Trickster, and I think that's mainly because Mark Hamill is just so dynamic and fun in the role, and he does such a great job of overacting, but the right amount of overacting. Like, we're talking like Joker levels of overacting. He definitely does do a very good job with that here. This Trickster just kind of pales in comparison. He was still fun to watch. I like the interactions between him and Prank, but I very much did miss Mark Hamill. I really did wish that he could have come back here, but it was cool to see that Trickster is still, you know, alive in the show. We haven't seen him in a long time, and I did think that having Trickster come back did breathe a little bit of life into this episode, so I definitely did overall enjoy that. Everything else going on, though, really not a huge fan of. I don't really care about Barry in prison. I don't care about the interactions between him and Big Sir. The fact that things are just, great for Barry and he really has nothing to worry about is just really dumb. You can tell they're really dragging this out. I mean, sure, Big Sir and Barry are now on your terms, but I just don't really care about this story. I'm just looking forward to when Barry gets out of jail, honestly, because I don't really care about this. I like that Iris is trying to help out Barry still, but they're at a bit of there's a bit of a lull because of the fact that it is so hard to get information, and I definitely do like seeing that she's still very determined. She still does want to help Barry, but it's just not really working out as well as, they want it to be. Minor complaints with the season so far. This is just a complaint on the season. But Harry really has had nothing to do all season long, honestly. He's been very much put to the background ever since he was introduced. They seem like they were going to give him some sort of story, but he's had, nothing to do. And Tom Cavanagh is so great, and they've very much just pushed him to the side, and I've noticed that. I've noticed that throughout the episodes, but this one especially, I just noticed, oh, wow, Harry really doesn't have anything to do in this show, and it is quite unfortunate, because I really do like Harry and Cisco's interactions together and Ralph's interactions, but they've given Harry, nothing to do this season, and that definitely is disappointing me overall. Other than that, though, like I said, I did think this was a solid episode. Nothing amazing. It definitely was fun overall. I did have fun with seeing Ralph, battle these two villains, but the main storyline going on, I just don't really care about. I don't care about Barry in jail. I want him to get out of there. He's not going to stay there forever, and I just don't really care about that story. Overall, I did enjoy this episode overall, and I am going to give The Flash Season 4, Episode 10, The Elongated Night Rises, a B. So overall, guys, for me, this episode of The Flash, and most guys saw this episode overall, left your thoughts on it. Like I said, I really want to enjoy this season, but they're really dragging this story out, and until Barry gets out of jail, I don't think I'm going to be enjoying this season as much, but that's in my review. Hope you guys enjoy. See you guys in my next video, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.